So here is my 1968 Series 2A lightweight Land Rover. Now this is actually chassis number 2390004, which makes it the fourth production lightweight. Strangely, for reasons I don't fully understand, the first production lightweights were made as left-hand drive, probably something to do with the military market they were being tested in, but I don't actually know. As we walk around the car, you can spot the deliberate mistake. This has been converted at some point to right-hand drive, which is much more convenient for me. Left-hand drive Land Rovers are a little bit cramped on that side. Apart from that, it's pretty conventional for an early 2A lightweight. So you've got the fuel tap on the bulkhead instead of in the later position on the bottom of the seat. Usual Land Rover heavy metal controls, upswept handbrake, usual collection of gear levers you'd expect to see. This one's got overdrive, again that wouldn't have been original. And then moving into the cockpit a bit more, you can see you've got the instruments, conventional Land Rover layout, voltmeter, water temperature, fuel gauge, and then you've got the speedo on the right hand side with a trip meter in it as well. Fitted some rather natty sat nav to this one in the form of an old boat compass, and you'll see you've got the convoy headlights down here, so you've got tail, side and tail, head, side and tail, and then convoy, and I don't know what S convoy stands for, maybe silent convoy, maybe, I don't know, no idea. And then on the right hand side again you've got the bulkhead plate. Now because it's an early series 2A lightweight, you've got the aluminium wiper box cover, and you also have this grab handle. On the later ones it's a much larger sort of D-shaped handle, whereas on this it's a squashed D I suppose, but it's much smaller. Apart from that, pretty much the same as you'd see in any other series 2A lightweight. Usual luxuriously appointed seats, and on this one it's got a set of static seat belts on. So the history of this one, when it came to me it had been driving around on a Q plate for who knows how long. I wanted an age related plate, and that's actually the main way I found out how early it was. I had to do some repair work on the front. It hadn't been used for a long time, hadn't been used since the early 90s, and it was during that, you probably can't read that, but the chassis number's down there, you'll have to take my word for it. It was doing that I found the chassis number. You can see here there are some rather crude extensions welded onto the front of the chassis to make some recovery points, and I imagine that has something to do with this badge that was on the front when I got it. So like a lot of lightweight Land Rovers in the early 90s, this was someone's off-road toy, and that also explains some of the other spec you've got on it. For instance, it's got parabolic leaf springs, another 90s favourite, and Pro Comp gas shock absorbers, although those are actually newer than they look because I had to replace those fairly recently. Now you'll notice on this side you can see the original left-hand drive steering drag link, and where it's been converted they've just put the new drag link on the other side. Now apart from that, pretty sure the axles are original, they're certainly military patterned. This one's even got the leather gaiters on there which are pretty grim, and it's a fairly normal Series 2A lightweight military chassis. And again, moving around to the back, you can see the parabolic springs which really shouldn't be there. Military pattern cross member, this is a replacement. When I got it, it had a civilian cross member on it. Apologies for the tow hitch, I do actually use this vehicle quite a lot. But apart from that, it's everything you'd expect to see under a Series 2A stroke Series 2A lightweight. And that's it really, there's not a lot more to look at. Really I'm posting this video because one of my issues with this car is it was originally issued to Land Rover's engineering department, so it's never seen military service as far as I can work out. Certainly doesn't have any signs of having seen military service, there's no extra bolt-on bits, but there's a few things that I'd like to establish. So if anybody's got pictures of this vehicle, it was exhibited at the FVRDE military show for prospective purchases, I suppose, by Land Rover, and I don't know what form that was in. Because it was issued to Land Rover's engineering department, I can't even be certain that I believe the left-hand drive to right-hand drive conversion was carried out in civilian life, if you like, but it's also possible the Land Rover's engineering department swapped it over. They did that with some of the early Series 1s, and obviously production vehicles and demo vehicles tend to get used for experimental work as well, for sort of trying out new devices. That brings me on to the next subject. When I got this, it didn't have this front end, it had the later Series 3 front end, so I assumed. However, it appears that one of the other early production lightweights was converted to headlights in the wing. And what I'd like to know is if this one ever had headlights in the wing when it was under Land Rover's ownership. I've kind of restored it, recommissioned it's probably a better word. I've recommissioned it to this standard because I like early Series 2A lightweights, but I'd like to find some pictures of it when it was owned by Land Rover's engineering department, because I'd like to consider putting it back to the sort of condition it was in when it was being lent out as a military demonstrator. So obviously parabolic springs need to come off, probably convert it back to left-hand drive if it was never right-hand drive under Land Rover's ownership, and you know, tidy up a few more of the details. I'd also like to know if it ever entered military service. I have tried researching its military history, and it doesn't appear to have one. I've gone to all the usual sources, Royal Engineers, Tank Museum, that kind of stuff. No one seems to have any evidence of it in military service, so I wouldn't be that surprised if it just spent its entire time in Land Rover's engineering department, maybe as a hack, maybe as a test vehicle for trying out any modifications to lightweights. But it runs its original chassis, runs its original bulkhead. I've actually got the original bulkhead top. It's kind of beyond repair, but I haven't thrown it away purely on the basis that it has some interesting features which are probably over from the fact that it's an early production vehicle. So for instance, these vents on this vehicle, they have a little square hole cut in and a captive nut push in there for the screw to go into. On the original bulkhead they don't have that, they just have a hole with a self-tapping screw through it, so I guess the stamp for the little square hole came a bit later on in production. So yeah, apart from that, that's it. So if anybody's got any information about this vehicle when Land Rover owned it, I'd love to hear from you. Just pass me a message at projectdiversions@gmail.com. Yeah, look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.